Before we kick off, registrations are open for our 24-hour leadership challenge on January 10 and 11. This is no retreat. It's a test of endurance, resilience, and mindset. You'll move, learn, lead, and push beyond your limits. All the details are in the show notes or at highpl.com.au. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Leader More podcast. Our motive is to pass on what we've found helpful over the years through leading teams, running operations, and dealing with life's challenges. We hope you enjoy. Scotty Clark.
Hey Dan, how are we?
Good. Mate, I've been pumped to sit down with you. It's been 4 months since the last time. So you wanted a saucy topic to lure you in. Bad bosses is the one.
Well, I actually had a list of,
Should we?
you had to pick me up in the company helicopter. Obviously, the buffet had to be here, and I had to have all my favorite foods, which you've gone and done.
You had a rider. What do they call him? A rider. With people who go to concerts, they have them like a rider. And
yeah.
I want Don Perignon. I want sushi. I want whatever.
What
What would you have on yours?
I mean, obviously, I'd have maybe chicken nuggets. Helicopter, obviously.
Go on Top Shelf. Chicken nuggets.
I would love maybe a laptop or something. Just play video games in my spare time.
Oh my god! Just a new joystick to us.
No, what have you been up to,
mate?
Been busy?
Yeah, enjoying. It's weird to say, enjoying the podcasting.
Yeah,
I love. It's been confronting, having guests on and things like that, out of my comfort zone.
How many guests have you had now? There's been a lot.
There's been a few. I don't know.
At least a dozen.
Haven't counted. But, at the start, how long it took for me to get over myself.
Oh, mate.
Because we were going for it. We were practicing for a good month or two.
Yeah, can't publish that. No, can't publish that. And I was just just let it go.
You're fast and loose.
Yeah.
I've got some standards, right?
Yeah, just put it out in the wild. People love it.
But I've loved it. Getting to know people. I learned so much. You do a little bit of research about what people do or what field they're from, and then you get an opportunity to sit down and get to know them and have a chat. And like I said, I'm out of my comfort zone doing that. So I've enjoyed that process of getting better, I hope.
Not to put you on the spot or anything, but in the spirit of, being educational, what's something that you feel like is, I don't know, the most surprising thing you've learned, or maybe the thing that you think about the most?
The most surprising thing is that I'm enjoying it. Yeah. That's that process of, you've known me for a little bit, and I don't like being out in front of things. It's about the team. That's important. So that process of me actually enjoying that, but seeing people get really lovely feedback after their episode goes out, that's fuel for me. I really enjoy that. I love seeing, it's a weird, let's talk about this in psychology, right?
Yeah.
So conversations like this we wouldn't normally have as such.
Yeah.
But I have a guest on and we wouldn't normally go into that detail. Then their friends or people who may know them will hear it and start sending them really lovely messages about, hey, I had a listen and da-da-da-da-da, whatever it may be, depending upon the person or the subject, right? And it's so nice that they get that feedback loop back, and I love seeing that. But it's why do we have to wait for a podcast for people that we've known for a while to actually do that? And, you just learn so much too about different people. I've known Chris Tuatara Morrison since I was, early 20s, and we played footy at the same time. And we're in our own lane, eyes focused on what we want to achieve and all that sort of stuff. So to hear his story about what he was going through at that time, I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
He just didn't realize.
Crazy.
And seeing what he's done since, it's really cool. So I've really enjoyed that. But that's, being busy and hard to sort of, it's weird saying that coming out of my mouth.
It's odd.
Yeah.
So then you promised a juicy topic.
So bad bosses, why did that lure you in?
Well, I like the idea of it because it's something that we're all very familiar with. We all have bad bosses. Depending on your work environment as well, you may be able to discuss that openly, but then you may not be able to discuss that. So in an environment where you're pretty comfortable with your colleagues and you have a bad boss, obviously you can vent then, or you can vent to your partner. But does your partner really understand what you're going through if you have a bad boss? Probably not. Sometimes you come home and you're like, oh, Mark was a jerk today. He called me a dweeb and all this stuff.
Whatever,
And your partner or whoever it is that you're confiding in might think you're taking things out of context, or maybe you're exaggerating.
Or depending how long you've been married for.
Yeah.
Maybe they're right. Maybe you're on their side.
But yeah, it's not that common you get to like talk about it in an environment where people potentially understand you and where they can maybe lend an ear and sympathize or empathize with you.
And it's hard too, like when you hear others going through it, it's hard to help as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't know the whole situation.
Yeah.
And it is difficult.
And we all tell stories from our perspective, right? Like, when I have a bad boss, for example, and when I recount stories of bad bosses I've had, it's always I've done everything right and they're the enemy. Like I couldn't have, my hands are tied. Like, how could I have done anything differently? I am a saint.
It's convenient.
Yeah.
Well, that's the interesting topic, right? Is it me?
Yeah.
Or is it the boss?
Yeah.
Like, and if you looked at, let's say, some behaviors like, I don't know, micromanagement, to pick on one, right? So you got a bad boss who you feel is micromanaging you. Well, are they? Why are they having to? Is it because they need that for their own, I suppose, personality and what they want to do? They enjoy that. They get something out of it. Or are they doing it because you haven't built the trust and you haven't delivered previously? So they need to do that to get the outcome.
Yeah.
Which is it?
Yeah.
Like that's an interesting view of it. And it's not to say that, it isn't the boss and bosses should get off, but asking that question is a good thing.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a hard one to have to talk to yourself about, because there's that scenario, right, where you feel like, hey, it's not me because I've done well here and I've done enough. And, I feel like I've exerted myself in this field. But then you have to like ask, is your exertion enough? Because like I've had this discussion quite a lot recently, which is you can put a lot of time and effort into something and still have a bad result. And that's a really hard one to tackle if you've got a boss who's like micromanaging you and it turns out that, or actually your best just isn't good enough.
Well, then the standard has changed, right? So someone new's come in, it's like, I don't like this boss because they're too hard. They're saying that what we're doing isn't up to scratch. And now that they're putting all this pressure on us to do more, it's just like, well, okay, well, it's always been like this. Why has it changed now?
And that process of going, oh, well, I thought that working this hard was good enough, but now I have to work harder and I've got to like push myself harder to maintain that higher standard. So it's hard work.
The other probably thing that you can do to reflect, I've sort of found, is like, well, what are others feeling? And that can be a little bit dangerous, right? Because we do all form our little groups of like-minded people, naturally to, I suppose, justify how we're feeling. But, are others having that same issue? Or is it just me that's struggling with this? Like, what is that set up there? Have I had this issue at a previous employer or previous bosses? You know? Which can be confronting as well.
What's the common denominator sort of thing?
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Right. And that's hard because that's not like, well, maybe you've had a bad run of, two psychopaths that are micromanaging you.
I mean, in my scenario, like I started working pretty young and I got into a workplace where, I did have a bad boss. And
are you sure?
well, I wasn't actually, because I kind of got out of that going, oh, wow, maybe it is me sort of thing. Like maybe I've got these issues. But then I went into a workplace with a good boss and then all of a sudden, like I'm doing really well. And so, then you go, well, is it me or not? Am I just reliant on who is telling me what to do? But, also as you get older, you start to figure out who you are and like your weaknesses and your strengths. But yeah, there is that, that path that you can go down where it's like, I have one bad boss, I have another bad boss, I have another bad boss. Is it me?
Yeah.
And obviously it can be a bit more ambiguous when it's like bad boss, good boss, bad boss, good boss.
Yeah. It's just asking that question I think is good to do. Well, you have to do, right? Like, and we naturally don't want to do that sometimes as people.
But you know what? What we've just talked about for the last 10 minutes is a waste of time, because as for myself and anyone listening, it's not us. It's always the boss.
What tells you it's the boss? Let's go. What tells you?
What tells me it's the boss? Well, everyone knows me. I'm like arrogant as they come. I always, openly, I'll say it's the boss 24/7. Privately, I'll, have the lackey band on the wrist and go, stupid Scott. The things that like I see as bad boss behavior is like self-serving behaviors. I don't necessarily look towards the team in terms of evaluating that. I look at how I feel. So is a boss giving me attention? Are they doing things which make me feel like I'm moving forward? So if I feel like a boss is completely self-serving and just, it's all about their outcomes and I'm just a means to their end, for me, that's like the worst.
Yeah, I get it. So giving you time, developing you, invested in your, I suppose, development.
Yeah, and that's a perfect way to put it. Like investing in like my development is like something that I look for, quite strongly. So if there is a lack of that, I go, well, this person isn't doing what's best for me. And if they did do what's best for me, they would have a huge amount of influence over me. And the fact that they're not means they have zero influence over me, which means, I'm not going to go out of my way to do things that they don't ask. I will just, do what is required or even less.
Yeah. And I suppose they double down even more, then it just gets worse and worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, what's your side of the story? Like what do you find is something that is an indicator of bad boss behavior?
Well, even before there's like interactions or maybe even how they treat you, those little things around, and they come out like once they do start interacting with you, but do they, are they there for the team or are they there for themselves? And okay, well, are they giving people a lot of praise? Are they passing that on, or are they, more looking for what they can get out of the situation? And, I don't know, every episode I do with different people, right? And it goes back to our first one about leadership motivations, our very first episode. Yeah. And there's a reason why we did that, eh? It's just like, and it's just been, I suppose, concreted in my mind just how important that is. But you can just pick up so much and all the behaviors will come from that.
Yeah.
So that sort of stuff, those traits on what they're like, are they actually there for, the team and things to go well, or are they there for themselves,
Yeah.
And I suppose we're all there for ourselves in a certain element.
Oh, it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, but I think there's that, and then how that comes out, like are they just picking at you in regards to, oh, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. They're not actually giving you the positives that you've done. Are they, I like your one about investing time. That's a big one for me. Like if you're a leader or you're a coach of a team, well, that's really your job, I see, is that you're trying to upskill your team or work with your team, support your team to do their best work. Like you can't do it all yourself. So like if they're, they're busy as all day long and just trying to do everything themselves, well, and you get down a little bit of a situation there where it's like, is that their fault? Because it may not be their fault, and we're not probably at that stage yet of talking about that, but there's some traits that can pop up. It may not necessarily, be because that's what they like to do, is just do all the work themselves, but that's the only thing that they're used to doing.
Yeah.
And, like that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Competency is another one, but they've got to be good. They've got to be a good...
Competency is such a it's such a hard one.
I don't even care if they know everything about the situation, but they have to be good at interacting with people.
Yeah.
So, hey, I don't know a lot about, computers. Okay, I don't know a lot about computers, but I have a team that knows everything about computers. And you can look at that and go, oh, okay, well, he's out of his depth. Yeah, possibly, but I don't care. Like if they're really good at getting that information about the experts that are there and supporting that team and pushing them and giving them everything they need, removing red tape so they can be as productive as possible and as happy as possible, I'm going for them every day of the week.
Yep.
So a way to be able to get the answers and work with the team.
Yeah. And the competency is such a big one for me because there is this balance between the know-it-all leader and, the very humble, honest leader who is willing to say, I made a mistake. I don't know this. Yeah. And there is this like scale where if the leader has too many of those instances where they've made mistakes, don't know what's going on, you can start to, as a follower, question their capacity to lead. But then also if you have it on the other side where they're a know-it-all, it can kind of like piss you off.
Well, it's like dealing with situations. So if you've got someone who knows everything about they're a subject matter expert in that particular area, but when shit goes wrong and they don't know how to deal with an issue, they get really stressed and it comes out sideways and they blame or, scream and shout, whatever it may be, right? It's not a good experience. Like, I'm more interested in the person that can deal with issues and stay cool and calm and can work with the team to get the answers and to admit, hey, we didn't do our best work here. Like, what can we do? Let's review that. Let's do a debrief and let's understand where we can be better. Like someone who can nail that process, I'm more inclined to want to work with someone like that than whether they know everything and anything about a motherboard. Like I don't care so much. Yeah. Like you've got people that can know that sort of stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of like, someone actually said this to me recently where it's like, I was asking them about something and they kind of did that exact thing where they're like, hey, look, I know I'm in this position, but I'm not an expert on what you spoke about exactly. And they used this cool analogy, which was, I know how a plane works. I know the concept of lift and drag. Now, can I build a plane? No. Like there are people who are specialists in electronics and all that sort of thing. So it is like it's a good thing to acknowledge what you do know and what you don't know, but also be competent and good at what you do know.
How they communicate as well. And I'm not sort of talking about active listening or all those sort of, buzzwords and things like that. But say, for instance, you're supporting a team and my line manager, I ask them, I need something, right? Something pops up and they need to do something for me, right? And they forget about it. Like, it's like, oh, come on. And then, we've all been in that situation where you've got a million and one things going on in your day and someone has a conversation with you, you've got something else going on in your head and they ask for something and you've completely forgotten about it. And in our mind, we go, oh shit, well, that's the 201st thing that I've had. So it doesn't matter. I forgot one thing, but for them, it's the only thing they've asked for.
Yeah.
And that, if that happens repetitively, like that's a marker for me. It's just like, again, they don't care about the team as much. It's not a priority.
Yeah.
Like those things. But then also too, whether it is something simple like that, but you've got an opportunity to really show just how much you care and how much support you can provide. If you remember it and you do it and get it done quick, not that you drop everything, but in a timely way, like that's a great situation to go, look, this is a fantastic, someone who cares, someone who's there for me. They've done something for me. And if one thing comes out, so I don't matter so much because they've been good to me. They've done this, but you see it all the time with people getting promotions, with people moving sideways into different positions or their contract comes to an end. Something really important for someone in a family, not just them, their family, everything, right, can drag for months. And it's just like, what are you doing? How you're explicitly showing how much you don't value that person.
Yeah.
Now there's lots that goes into that because, hey, HR, people and capability team take forever. There's so much red tape. There's all this sort of stuff. So it gets into organizational structure and having an organizational structure that is quick and agile to support that.
Yeah.
Because it may not necessarily, if you're my boss, it may not necessarily be your fault because, hey, my hands are tied, all this red tape, it's going to take forever. It's not that I don't care, but
Yeah.
I just think those situations are really, those interactions are really important.
I mean, it sounds like we have the same sort of vibe of how we would categorize like bad bosses. It'd be interesting if to hear other people's opinions on what they consider to be a bad boss. Like, like laziness? Is it because like my boss sleeps in their office? Because we've seen that before.
There's that stuff, unrealistic expectations. We've been doing something at this level and you need to double it now. It's like, well, we're not doubling the team. How are we going to be doing this? You know? And again, the approach with that sort of stuff is like, a lot of times too, is like, you might be someone senior, you come into a position and you're looking at something and you go, okay, well, here's an area that we need to improve. So you might pass that down to the leaders below you. And then those leaders see that as an opportunity to go, shit, I'm going to impress the new boss.
Yep.
I'm going to drive my team to get, this is really important, you know, it may even be subconsciously that they're doing that. We need to sort this out. We need to do this. Then they become these micromanagers or people that probably aren't treating their team so great. It's not necessarily the fella right at the top.
Yeah.
It may well be. He may have done the same thing, but how that's then trickled down to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Instead of, hey, you know, again, getting back to, I don't care if someone knows a lot about a particular area. It's more about how they deal with situations. It's like you sit down with your team and go, hey, we've got this situation. They're expecting this. And actually, and it may even come across a bit negative, but it actually relating some things that are going through their mind, because it's going to come up in their mind. It's like, yeah, I get that it's different from what we've done before. I get it's probably a bit unrealistic. It was the first thing I thought about, but not necessarily saying that stuff so you can, I suppose, add fuel to the fire, but get it out of the way. Yeah. We need to get over that hump. We need to stop thinking about that. Yes, it's unfair. Yes, it's not realistic. Yes, it's different from the past, but let's move on. What are we going to do? You know, and getting through that process with them is cool.
And like, but there are, and we've spoken about some pretty, like, you know, some pretty standard bad bosses, right? But there's also like that other tier of bad bosses who are like abusive bosses, and not just, you know, abuses of power or like, you know, having weird relationships and things like that, but like, you know, people who prey upon people's dispositions. So someone who, for example, I know this is actually very common and I hear about this all the time. You might have someone who's like quite anxious or like a yes man, I guess, or a yes woman. And a boss recognizes that and just goes, hey, I know that this person can't say no to me, so I just keep asking them again and again. There's also other ones with that, like, you know, sort of anxiety or detailed oriented, where you know someone who is potentially has, you know, they could be like OCD, for example. So it's like, I'm going to give this person all that work because I know how detailed focused they are. And that can cause like quite a lot of stress for that person, because you're kind of preying upon their disorder in order to achieve a result. So good for you, causes a lot of stress for them.
Well, even just their personality traits, you know, like someone who's a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And we can all be guilty of, you know, doing that, but it's just like, you know, bosses preying on that and just giving you more and more, or hey, you're a high performer and you just keep getting all the work and all the work. Another thing that that I would classify in the bad boss category is someone that will, want to expect these standards of people that are, you know, that are self-motivated, doing the job well, but they won't pull up the people that aren't.
Yeah.
You know, the people that are actually taking the piss and not, you know, working how they should be. They'll turn a blind eye and just focus on you. It's just like, well,
yeah.
why?
And sometimes it's because, well, I've learnt that I can confront you and you won't do anything about it. But then if I confront Joe over here, he will always be combative with me, and I don't want to handle that. So I'm going to focus all my attention on you.
Yeah. And you know, I like a boss that has discipline, you know, and that might be a bit controversial, but in the fact that, you know, because it's not necessarily about your comfort, right? Because this is important. It comes back to that micromanagement, or, hey, are they bullying me? You know, and very broad, but it's like if someone's expecting higher standards from you, you know, and can see that you're capable of more than that you see yourself capable of, you know, like I like that. Like that's pushing the team and supporting the team to be better. It may not be comfortable. You may be out of your comfort zone, but it's not actually bullying. Like it's, you know, they're doing their job. They're actually trying to get the best out of you. You know, like I look at that, and in the past I've seen that certainly from a sporting point of view with coaches, and it's like, oh Jesus, this coach had enough of this bloke, but he's doing it because he cares. You know, he's trying to push you because he knows that you're capable of
like
more.
You know, approaching someone and saying, hey, I think you could do this, this, and this better. Like that's not bullying, but going up to them and going, "Hey, Four Eyes, you could do this." That, yeah, that's probably more bullying, right?
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that tier of some really, and again, like, what do you actually do in that situation?
Yeah.
Like and it says a little bit like decisions people make. That's another thing that I'm going on tangents here in regards to just keep popping up some light bulbs in my mind. But if I've got a leader that will employ and has a track record of employing people in key positions that aren't any good at their role, it's like, what does that say about them?
Yeah.
They may have got one wrong or two wrong or whatever it is. But if you're consistently bringing on people that aren't great, like I look at that and go, oh, no, they're not for me. It's not aligned to what it is. And, we alluded to it before. Is it their fault? And you can get stuck in this stuff, I reckon, because it's sort of like, does it really matter? Maybe not. But let's go, hey, is it their fault? Well, I'm a leader. I'm flat out. I've been thrown into this position. I don't have any support. I've worked hard. You got a friend there, mate?
Right. Not now.
Hey, you want to say something about bad bosses? Bad owners.
Yeah.
Look out. But, I'm not supported. I don't have time to go and have a conversation or build a relationship, or I'm just given all these tasks and I'm just flowing them down I've got so much to do. That's not their fault. Like that situation dictates that those behaviors are going to come out. And I think, and the reason why I bring it up is because we do get set on, like Bob, I don't like Bob. He's not a good person. It's like, well, is it that he's not a good person, or he's just been thrown in a really average situation?
Well, that's a huge thing as well, is that why are people hired or promoted as leaders in the first place? It's I see it very rarely that people are put into leadership positions for their leadership capability. It's usually because they've done something technically
good. That's the minority.
Good. Yeah. It's usually because they've done something well in their position. So, if it's someone who's now going to lead a finance department, they've done well in their role as a finance officer. And then
take a punt.
Yeah. And then, so, I think about this all the time with bad leaders, is that it's not always their fault, because you've kind of put them in a position where you haven't really trained them in what they're supposed to do. And it's not like they've, studied leadership or anything like that. They've just done well technically, and now they're expected to have influence over people somehow.
Yeah. And again, it's like, one of the reasons why it doesn't really matter is because it's not necessarily their fault. Like, it's not, you do get those people in that level of they're wired that way, and they get enjoyment out of, talking down to people, or they can see someone who is anxious and know if they just raise their voice a little bit, they know that they're going to shut up. There are those people out there, 100%. But I would say that they're probably more the minority, and I have a real soft spot for the people that are in a real, being thrown in the deep end and just trying to keep their head above the water.
Yeah.
Because all those little things that are added extras, you could call them, super important, like, getting things done for people on time, building relationships, all that. You may not be able to get the time to do that sort of stuff, and that's how it is.
So yeah, I think it's important just acknowledging and having empathy for even the bad bosses, and just realizing, they didn't have the training to lead well, or they are just thrown into an average situation. And having that sort of mindset, I guess, will help us go into, well, what can we do about it? Because if you go into it just thinking to yourself, well, Greg's an asshole, he's just a narcissist, it's going to be hard to want to make any changes or make any allowances for that behavior so that you can improve it. Having that empathy for them can then set you up for success in that area of, okay, well, this is Greg's situation. How can I improve it? Not just for myself, but for him as well.
Yeah, no, I like it. And because it's a relationship, right?
Exactly.
Again, there's going to be those cases where it's like, okay, someone's really off the planet, right? And are really not up to it. But, it's a relationship. So how much time have you put into that relationship? And just calling someone names, not to their face, but just, labeling someone, well, that's not going to get you a better outcome. And you're the person who's going to suffer the most, like in this situation. Like, it's on your mind, you're frustrated about it. Okay, well, we've got to get past that. How do we get past that? Because we do need to get to a point where we can make it better. How do we do that? One option may be that you leave. It's just not where you want to be.
Yeah.
That could be because it's that bad, but it also could be because you're not prepared to try and make it better and change. That could be a little bit too confronting, which you can understand.
Yeah.
Just sitting down and having a difficult conversation with your boss and saying that, look, this is how I'm feeling. I'm not sure if it's your intent, but this is how it's coming across. Just, I want to have
it's such a huge opportunity for growth in that situation as well. In that situation where it is so bad that you feel like your only recourse is to leave, it sounds hard and it sounds cruel and stressful to yourself, but putting yourself in that position where you want to mend that relationship is such a good opportunity for growth. Like, you learn how to deal with something that's so hard that it almost makes you want to leave. Now, doing that alone is very hard. My advice is that you probably need external support for that. Whether that be, someone professionally who's a consultant who deals with relationship building and things like that. Sometimes you can just get away with, managing that with close friends or other people within your workplace. But yeah, I don't envy that position, but it is one of those opportunities where if you make your way through that, you will learn so much, and not just in building relationships, but you'll also build that degree of resilience in yourself.
Yeah. Well, okay, I've got a situation, play devil's advocate there, Scotty. I've got a situation where I've been to my boss for work-related stuff and been shut down all the time. Like, I just can't have a conversation with this person.
Yeah.
We don't see eye to eye. I can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, you get back to that first question, is it the boss or is it me?
Yeah.
And it is a relationship, so you've got a part to play. Let's just say one of those options on the scale may be that it's just, it's not going to work and you do have to leave. But what can you do to build the relationship?
Yeah.
Review just how much time you have put into building a rapport and a relationship with that person. Have you put in any time, or you're expecting them to do it all? Because they're still a person.
100%.
Whether they're just hierarchically above you doesn't mean anything. They're still just a person. And again, it may well be that they've just been thrown in, into a rough spot and they're just doing their best and they're struggling, right?
Yeah.
So, how much time have you put into it to build the relationship, to enable it to get to a point where you can have that conversation? Don't get me wrong, really good leaders should be building those relationships and leading the way with that sort of stuff, right? But if you've got someone who's just been thrown in, they're younger, they've been technically really good, they're just doing their best, you may have to be a part of that process.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure. Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, having that conversation is tough, but I've always found, it's just being honest. It's and mindset is important going into that, right? Is that you need to be calm. You need to be super calm. And even through it, I would say you need to be super calm the whole way, because in the end, if you get to a point where you're blowing up and acting like they're doing, and you've got an issue with how their behavior is, well, you're just turning into that same version.
Exactly. And that's why I think it's always important to just, we talk about if you were to make an Excel spreadsheet on words that we say in this podcast, the word outcome comes out a lot. But I think it's always really important to anchor yourself on that word, because it is so easy to go in there, emotions high, and just forget that, hey, I'm not fighting for, being right or making myself feel good. Our objective is to, move this much product or, paint this many surfaces. Maximizing that outcome is dependent on this relationship. So I think always, going into those difficult conversations, it's so much easier to stay calm and remain in the moment and rational if you just keep anchoring yourself to what are you here for?
Not the emotion, the outcome.
Yeah.
No, I think that's
which is not to say you're not allowed to feel emotion. Like you absolutely are.
You should, yeah. But you can't have it dictate, what necessarily comes out of your mouth as such, which is a fine line because you are bringing up some emotions.
But obviously listen to what I say, not what I do.
But if you've had a couple of goes at that, right, and your line manager has not responded, there's been no change. Well, it tells you that, this isn't really going to work out. And like, I think then you start to do the math of, okay, well, what are all the good things about my role and what are all the shit things about my role? Well, if you're expecting that your role is perfect and it's all positives, like there's no role, right? Like that's not going to happen. There are going to be things that you're not necessarily like. So if you've got 10 great things and this is one thing, well, you've got to make that decision as, am I okay with this? Or do I, if he's not going to change or she's not going to change, am I okay with, just sucking it up in that respect? Or is it that important to me that I'm going to get myself out of that situation? Or am I going to wait it out until they go?
Yeah. And look, if you're if in a position where you can just up and leave, that's very fortunate because that's often the easiest thing to do and probably the thing that is going to be less stressful in your life. Obviously, if you have other things going on in your life, you got kids and you're managing other things, having to manage this relationship on top of your job, on top of all those other things is very stressful and it can sometimes backfire. So that strategy of, let's bail is not a bad one.
No, it's not. But it's just not that simple, and I think when, particularly people talk about this sort of stuff is like, oh, if I was ever in that situation, I would just leave. It's like, well,
not that easy.
Yeah, okay. Well, how are you going to pay your mortgage? How are you going to support your family? Can you get another job? Am I comfortable enough in my own skin that I feel that I can go through that, process of putting myself out there and finding another position? What do I do? Yeah. It's not that simple. And, whether you just weigh it up and go, hey, look, I know what they're like. I can, get through this by doing different things. And you can put some boundaries up there just from an emotional point of view in regards to, you had some expectations of where this boss should be. They're not there. Okay, well, you've got to probably lose those expectations. Doesn't mean that you need to be treated poorly or anything like that. But if you've got these expectations that they're going to be, a superhero boss, well, you're going to set yourself up for fail continually, right?
Gosh, I'm so guilty of that all the time too. Because
you've got to be perfect.
I watch too many movies, so it's everything has to be as it is in Hollywood.
Well, speaking of that, right? We went and had a look at the Gladiator at the convention center. Yeah. Oh, Russell Crowe.
Rusty.
And they had the symphony playing along, which was really cool. Yeah. Hey, that was
awesome.
I'm not a symphony man. You obviously are.
More my style.
I went for the movie. You went for the orchestra, but I really enjoyed the orchestra. But you look at that, you look at Russell Crowe's character Maximus compared to, is it Joe Caine? How do you say his name?
I don't know.
Joe Caine thing. Something like that. Commodus, right? And old Commodus, I think looking at the interactions while we're watching, it's just I think he talks to one person that doesn't have really any power to ask a question throughout the whole movie. Whereas, Russell Crowe's character, he's wandering around, he's chatting with people. You can see on their faces.
Man.
Yeah, he's one of them. He's part of the team. He's approachable. There's that relationship you can see very clearly.
Yeah.
He's put time into it. And, it's been reciprocated, which is great. So, going to a boss like that and going, hey, Maximus, I get all this strength and honor stuff, mate. But hey, I've got a bit going on in my home life. I really need to gas it, Is that all right with you? Well, hey, can we do something a bit different? I'm sick of using these catapults all the time. But, it's just those little markers and stuff, and you're not always going to have a Maximus, but, you probably just need to understand who you got, and work with what you got.
Who are you? Are you more of a Maximus? You're probably more of a Commodus. No, I'm probably more of a Max. I'm probably more of a Marcus Aurelius.
Well, old and withered.
Yeah, but wise. And always at study.
Mate, you got slayed by your son, but he suffocated you.
Yeah, but you got to take the good with the bad.
Maybe, yeah. So no, I think that's important, and I like your point on, okay, well, what can we do next? It's about the outcome. So what do we got to do to get to that point? labeling, getting allies from within, you chatting with people and just, I suppose fueling the fire in that regards isn't going to help your cause by any means,
Hey, just like you're handling emotion with emotion, which works sometimes with kids, according to the literature, but probably not as well with adults.
Yeah. So that conversation, tough, and you're going to feel pretty average going into it.
Yeah.
But, like just being honest and open with them about that. If that fails, maybe it is a little bit of the relationship stuff to get to a point where you can do that better. I don't know. What do you reckon about going one above? Do you talk to someone to the side of them? Do you talk to someone above them?
Yeah, it's a risky strategy sometimes because sometimes that can poison the relationship even more because
if they find out about it.
they feel like they've been hamstrung and that you've gone behind their back to go resolve something. I feel like there can be something beneficial about that, particularly if whoever you've decided to go to actually decides to mediate some sort of relationship between you two, because sometimes having that mediation is all you need. But yeah, like I said, in that scenario, you have to be very careful in terms of knowing your standing with the person, how they're going to react to having someone external come in and try and mediate that. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it's...
But even if it goes, pear-shaped, right? Like, we're in the situation where, you're the bad boss and, I've gone above you to have a conversation and you find out about it and you come to me and go, damn, what are you doing? No. It's like, well, look, Scott, mate, it's important to me.
Yeah.
I've spoken to you twice about this. We have had this conversation and nothing has changed. So, I want to have this conversation with you, but it's shown that I haven't been able to. And, I wish I didn't have to do this, but hey, can we talk about this stuff, And look, easy to say all that, right? But when you're in the heat of it, like there's a bit going on, that's difficult in that situation. But you're right, having someone that can coach you through that, help you get through that, give you some structure, but then also to give you that accountability. It's like, hey, Scotty, man, we've been talking for a week and you've been pointing the finger. Like, let's stop doing that now. What's the plan moving forward? What are our options here? Okay, well, we need to have a conversation. Okay, well, when are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? Let's rehearse that together. I'll be the bad boss and let's give it a crack.
It's something that I do a lot, and like not just in like, in the whole leadership thing, but like in general, whenever you need to do something difficult, something I do all the time is just script it and rehearse it with another person. I pretend to be this person, you pretend to be this person. Let's do a scenario where the bad boss is very receiving of your message and, it's all lovey-dovey and whatever. And then let's do a scenario where they hate you and they want to fire you and
and try and keep it together,
and just having a plan for how those conversations might go, and it prevents us from having to rely on our cognitions in the moment, which will be emotionally fueled. If we can have a plan in place and a script per se for, if it goes like this, I'll say this. If it goes like this, I can say this.
Well, just some practice, like expose it, like it's such a simple formula, right? It's just like do something more and you'll be better at it.
And
so
like,
how can you do that?
Yeah, and don't be deceptive about like how you're feeling or like what you're chasing out of this outcome, because something that Judge Judy actually said, which I love, is, is that like it's easy to tell the truth, and you don't need a good memory if you're telling the truth. Whereas like if you're being deceptive, it can come across like you're lying about your motives and what you're trying to achieve in your outcomes, to the point where it's like, well, someone maybe believes that actually you're not outcome oriented, and what you're actually chasing is the same thing that I'm chasing, which is to feel good about myself and feel powerful and strong.
Well, want to be right, like, because that's a good point that we probably should have brought up towards the start in regards to are they a bad boss? Is it, just because it's different to how it's happened before or how you would do it, does that mean that they're bad? Like, is that a marker?
Yeah.
That's a good one. What about, we're talking about, going around your boss. What about going to HR Now, we've
Spicy.
done a couple of episodes, and what's come up a couple of times in episodes with people from a HR space, right? Just about how much trust you can instill in HR these days, right? I've been in the situation where one of my team has had an issue with someone within a support office. They've had a conversation that's come up. It wasn't the intent, but it's come up with their boss. That boss has then passed that on to that person, and then that person has then come to me as the line manager for this person to complain about them. And I'm just going, my God, where's some confidentiality coming out of a people and capability team? Like, why has this happened? You know, and I'm not against necessarily that person finding out as such, but that tone of that conversation was, do they have a problem with me? Why do they have a problem with me? It's just like, well, this isn't going to go anywhere. And why the hell did your line manager tell you this? Like, this is not good. But I don't know. What do you reckon?
Oh, look, it's I think you're in that scenario, you're like fighting that desire as like a human to just want to like, gossip about things. And like everyone's kind of guilty to that. When things are slow in the workplace and there's not enough going on, we kind of do want to create that sort of drama, make it seem like it's an episode of Desperate,
Hey, my boss is micromanaging me because he feels that I can be more productive.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with him, so I'm going to spend the next 2 days gossiping about it because I've got all this free time because I'm not productive.
Also, a huge part of gossiping is just like finding confirmation in what you think. So, you never gossip to your enemies, but you'll go to the people who you are like-minded with and go, hey, this person, they've done this. And a huge part of that is that their confirmation of what you're saying, and they're going, oh no, you're right.
Well, this is a really good point, and we'll get back to the HR point, but this is a good point. If like you've got one of your work colleagues or one of your friends or your partner coming to you and saying, hey, this, there's an element that they need to vent, right, and get it off their chest, which is fine. And I do that. Like I find that I think a lot when I'm talking about stuff. It's not so much just all up in there, right? But it's like, okay, well, they need to get it out. But if this is the continual trend, you're not going to be helping your friend or the person who's coming to you by just confirming what they're thinking. Like you're actually going to make it worse, right? You do probably want to, particularly if you're dealing with the same thing, confirm that sort of stuff. But okay, well, how can we get to that next step of, what's our plan moving forward?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? What's our action to get to our outcome?
Sometimes all you need, like sometimes you don't need to give someone the answer. And this is a strategy in motivational interviewing, for example, in psychology, where you don't have to give someone the answer. Like sometimes they come to you and you kind of just have to be the person to motivate their change, not give them the answer.
So what are you going to do about it? Type thing?
Yeah. And so then it's fine in that scenario to kind of like confirm the way they're feeling, but then steer them towards, well, how do I motivate change in this person? And sometimes that's what someone will need because, in a scenario where someone comes to you and you're just like, well, you need to do this and this, that person can just sometimes like feel like there's everything wrong with them and they just need to constantly make changes to their life, which is demoralizing and sometimes can make the situation worse. So yeah, I think it's like important to base things on a case-by-case basis, whereas maybe someone is just like, complaining all the time and that's habitual for them and someone just needs to break that cycle. But maybe someone has a good reason to be complaining, but we need to utilize other strategies in order to like motivate change in that person.
Yeah. And just taking ownership, I think, is important. Like that's helped me is like, okay, well, look, you're not happy with this situation. Yeah, you can, complain about it or you can do something about it, right? And I think that's, that's a hard hurdle to get over. And then what's held me back is I didn't want to have that conversation. So it's like, well, I'm not going there. I'm not doing that. That's too confronting. I'm not going to do it. So my only option is to complain about it, right? And you're left just with that, which is really hard. And I don't hold that against, myself at that time. I don't hold it against anyone else who struggles to possibly have that conversation. This whole conversation is not about who's right and who's wrong as much as it's titled Bad Bosses, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, well, what can we do in this situation? They're a human being. Yeah, I get that you've had a better boss before, but they're not this boss. So how can you make the best out of this and get to those outcomes? What can you do? Is it, if you put some time in, will you get some outcomes, or are you not? Well, okay, well, if we're not, we've got to go somewhere else, or we've got to do something a bit more drastic, right? People and capability team, right? So yeah, it can be hard. Again, you probably just got that, hey, well, have I got a good relationship? Have they proven to me that I can tell them things that are confidential and it doesn't get out? Yeah. Is there a situation where I just need to tell them about a situation, through, an email and record keeping? Because this is an important one too, is just like record keeping about all this sort of stuff is important. If they are tier 1 bad boss, psychopath, or whatever it may be, and it's going to be, a tough sort of situation to deal with, you probably want to be detailing without emotions, just detailing the different things that have happened. I've done that before. It's like, all right, I've had a pretty full-on conversation with someone, and I've detailed that conversation to someone in a HR team, just so, not that you cover your ass, but it's the right thing to do.
Also just for like memory's sake, right? Because, we can sort of, and this is well known as well, we can very easily adjust our own memories over time to suit our beliefs,
to fit the narrative,
to fit the narrative. So, if we have this overall schema or idea that someone is a jerk, and then we have a meeting with them and there was no real jerky behavior, but then 12 months later we recall that conversation, we'll probably put a jerky spin to it because that's just how like the human brain works, and that's very common in memory for us to do that.
Yeah. Going through those situations, and thinking back to when I was younger, going through those situations, my normal routine of getting up early and I suppose building my capacity to deal with stress and so forth, whether it is exercising or doing whatever, right? I dropped all that because I had all this drama going on, and I didn't want to, or I couldn't stop thinking about this stuff. So my sleep then suffered. And then I got to a point where I wasn't exercising in the morning. So I'm in an emotional situation. It's confronting for me. I've lost my capacity building to deal with stress. I've lost sleep, two of the key things in getting through a difficult situation. Yeah. So finding a way to focus and make decisions when you are in a good frame of mind is important as well. Like if you're worked up, you're emotional, all this sort of stuff, you haven't slept well and you're making decisions on something like this or having that conversation, it could go sideways, that's for sure. I find that, I don't know, you're the scientist amongst us here, right? In regards to, academic sort of stuff. And I'm probably more just figure stuff out as I go. But I was there the other morning and I was just scrolling on Instagram. Right?
Doom scrolling.
Yeah, doom scrolling. And I was thinking about stuff that I was doing and I just was really sort of negative about it. My self-esteem was poor. It just, I ended up getting to a point where I went for a run, all right, which I probably should have done first, but I went for a run. And then when you're running, you got time to think. And then I'm thinking about all this stuff really positively.
Yeah.
And it's just like the
run is high.
Well, yeah, it's just the power of that. And then I get back from the run and then I'm productive for 2 or 3 hours. If I kept doom scrolling, I would have been done for the whole day. Like my self-esteem would be shot. Yeah. And I'm just not going to be very positive, optimistic about situations.
There are people who understand it a lot better than I do, but it comes up in like literature all the time in terms of, mental well-being, exercise, sleep, diet, like all huge contributing factors to good well-being.
You're under the pump, you're getting, there's, let's say, a bit dramatized, but there's an attack's going on, there's different things happening, you're in a confronting situation. You need to be at your most prepared at that point. You can't lose those, those foundations, which is easy if you're not sleeping well. That's for sure. So actually thinking through not just, how you're feeling, but some processes that you can put in place. If you get to a point too where you your only course of action is to leave, well, okay, well, you've got to set up a bit of an exit plan there, don't you? You know, like getting some stuff in place, whether it is resumes, whether it is financially where you're at. I'm a big advocate for that, is that, you know, if there's behaviors that are going on and you've tried to, you know, bring that to light and people don't want to listen, and it's, you know, you should vote with your feet.
Yeah, I was trying to say the old Daniel Green, vote with your feet.
Well, I think these sorts of situations continually happen because people allow it to a certain extent. And then that's not a finger point exercise, but I think that's just a little bit of reality with human beings, is that, well, if, you know, say for instance, you're a toxic boss and you've gone through your career for 10 years and no one's had an issue with you, and you've just had all these yes people that will tell you whatever you want to hear and you've had no issues. And then old Daniel Green comes here and starts...
I was going to say, is this a personal story?
But, you know, like, and starts saying, hey, you know, he's got a problem with that.
Yeah.
Like, the leader's going to do the same thing. The boss is going to do the same thing. Hey, I haven't had these issues before. Like, what's this guy on about? Like, I really haven't had these problems before, and reflect on it. No, maybe he is not right, you know? And it's, again, there's two people involved here. It's not just my feelings that are the most important, or my situation's the most important.
I think that one is where like a mediator could help a lot, like in couples therapy, you know, sort of vibe.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
So let's talk why having a bad boss is actually a good thing.
Are there good things about having a bad boss?
Well, you got to be optimistic, Scotty.
Yeah,
for sure. So, you know, like what not to do comes to mind. Okay, well, I know I do things a certain way as a leader and I see the complete opposite happening. I know that it solidifies to me.
Using that person as a frame of reference.
Yeah, best mistakes to make is ones that you don't make, but you see in others and you don't get to
this that makes point. Me feel, like his behavior makes me feel poorly. How do I stop people from feeling the way I do? By not doing that.
Not doing that. Reflecting on your own performance and going, hey, do I do that at all?
Yeah.
And there's different people within, you know, a team that you may lead that you might be closer with or not, or whatever reason you have to interact with more, that you probably just need to reflect on and go, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to be better here. I don't want to get to that point. I know what that feels like for me, that self-awareness. So I've got to make sure that I sort this out here for me. Like, I think that's a massive positive in that sort of situation.
What about the old, you know, misery loves company? Like like you have a group of people who have to suffer under one bad boss and they all bond over that suffering sort of thing. So
well, it brings your team tighter together.
Yeah.
For sure. And that can be a massive fuel. Like if you're in a more senior position and you see this going on, you've made a bad hire, it's gone to shit, the team are getting hammered, but they're coming together. Like, there's a great opportunity if you can fix your issue, fix your error and fix that up, or mediate that situation, is that you've actually brought them closer together.
Yeah.
They're more of a team because of that situation, which is, you know, really, really weird to sort of say, but you can understand how that sort of comes about.
Yeah. And it's also like an opportunity to like understand yourself and really solidify what your strengths are, what you like, what you don't like. So obviously you don't know what a bad boss is until you've had one. And then you can start to question, well, what are the traits that I don't like in that person? And that can really align you in the future to who you work with moving forward. If you find that you probably work better with, you know, chirpy or funny people, then you can go down that direction. Maybe you don't like people who are too static in the way they speak, so you avoid that.
Another one is that you're in a role, you've been there for, I don't know, 5 years. Well, it gives you an opportunity to review, well, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Because we can all just go on autopilot a little bit and get in our comfort zone. Hey, it's a cool team, really like it. Everyone gets along well. I love it here. I never want to leave. It's like, well, why wouldn't you want to leave? You know, like, is this what you really want? It gets you to a point where you go, okay, well, is this really for me? Or should I be doing something else? It gives you that little kick to, I suppose, review why you're there and what you're doing. Yeah. Is this for you or is it not for you?
It's also beautiful when like the bad boss can be a catalyst for like major change in your life. So
pushing you out of your comfort zone.
well, yeah, for example, I've always wanted to be a pilot sort of thing. And then you have a bad boss and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm going to go to flight school now because it's like it's pushed you over the edge, and that was the catalyst for that change. And when you're coasting, you don't really see a need for that change. But then putting that person in your life, you go, now I see why I want to change because I don't like this.
Yeah, it shakes things up. And I think in a situation like that, right, where, you hear it a little bit in regards to people who I suppose are brought in to change situations or environments. Someone who's let's say a disruptor. It's like, well, are you a disruptor or are you just rude? Like, just sit down with me and have a conversation. Hey, our business is heading in this direction. This is where we're at. This is where it's been in the past. We're moving in this way for these reasons. Does that align to you or not? Like you don't have to get to a point where you're managing people out, making their life hard. Just have an honest conversation with them. Yeah. I'll probably go, well, it's not for me. I do want to make a change. Hey, I've always been thinking about this and going and flying or doing whatever. It's just I have that open conversation. It's not that hard, and treat it with respect. Things have changed, and that's, I suppose that's coming from a point of view is that, if that hierarchy is, not working off emotions or saving their own backsides or whatever, they're looking at things practically or not, whether that's the case, which it may not be. Pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in regards to having a tough conversation. You learn so much about yourself doing that, jumping over that hurdle. That's a real positive, having a bad boss. Yeah. How do I deal with this person? Everything... I can just do it without even thinking about it previously. Well, I've got to actually think about this. Yeah. What do I do? Like, that's a positive thing.
It was something that we spoke about earlier as well, which is, you can frame it as this is the worst thing ever, or, oh my God, this is an outstanding challenge that I've been given. You're some psychopath.
And that's hard too, because you can always just look at things too positively and just sweep things under the carpet. But there are some positives there, that's for sure, with dealing with situations like that. Bad bosses, how can they mask it? So like, I've had a boss, funny guy. Yeah. Enjoyed being around him, made me smile. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a good boss. Well, is he? Or is he just funny? Like.
You're talking about me?
No, certainly not. You know that. But like, that situation, that can mask it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very approachable, those sorts of things, always having time. Hey, I'm just so busy. I'm getting hounded by my boss, always busy. Oh, they're okay. They're just busy all the time because of this. It's not really their fault, Yeah. You can sort of make excuses, but just those little traits that can probably mask whether they are a good boss or a bad boss. Like, I don't know, I've sort of found myself fall into that trap. Oh yeah, they're good because I like them. But are they good?
Oh, a lot of the time it's they're good because they make me feel good. And then, we can go into
rabbit hole there.
A rabbit hole of, well, then are they truly good? Yeah. Well, let's not.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then people above's opinions of them.
Because like ultimately we have to do what we were talking about earlier, which is like anchoring ourselves in that word of outcome, right? So someone might make you feel good, but you might not get a good outcome out of what you're supposed to be doing.
What about what stops a boss from changing? So, hey, we've spoken about that it may not be their fault. Yeah. Not that it's about, whose fault it is, but it may not be their fault. Yeah. What can stop? Okay, well, I'm just busy and I don't have time to change.
They don't have the resources.
Yeah, resources. I don't know how to do it. Yeah. Bosses above me do it this way. Yeah. I've been told by my boss above me that, hey, whatever I say, you just got to agree with and we'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Like that happens. Yeah. I've heard of that a few times. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, great start. Yeah. But, situations like that, if that behavior is accepted and that person's been there for 10, 15 years and, okay, cool, well, I can do that too. It's accepted behavior. So, all right.
Yeah. And that just fuels the cycle, right? Well, I had to do what my boss said no matter what. So then my expectation is that people need to do what I do no matter what. And then, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, we're all humans. We all have insecurities. You're in a situation where, hey, I've had a bit of a bloody, understanding that I probably have done things some bad ways, and I could be better in certain ways. Do I admit that? do I rectify that?
Yeah.
Or do I turn a blind eye? You know, like you can understand why people will do that. So there's probably a few things there that can really sort of hold people back from changing. But like, I'm a massive advocate of, you know, dealing with situations like that. You've got to do something about it. And you know, it could be voting with your feet, or it could be having that conversation. But if you don't do any of that stuff, and we mentioned before just about, okay, well, a boss who's been there for 10 years, right? And they've had this track record where no one's had any issues, no complaints, they've got good outcomes, they've done well. But maybe they've just been working with a whole heap of yes people, and they come across this one person in their new role, and this new person, or this person is pushing back against you. It's like, well, what are they on about here? I've been fine. What's this guy? He's the problem. Well, maybe he's the one that's pushing back because it's the right thing to do. And all these people prior have just let it go. And this behavior has gone on for 10 years. So it's sort of like, okay, yeah, it's not right, it's not fair that you find yourself in that situation, but you've got a responsibility or a duty to ensure that that doesn't happen to the next person. You know, I think that's a really important point. It's helped me get to a point, oh shit, I don't want to have those conversations. Well, it's not about me. What about the next person?
Yeah.
You sort of leverage that empathy or emotion there in regards to trying to get yourself to an outcome instead of just, wussing out like I did in particular times in my younger days, for sure. Scotty, it's been awesome to have you back, mate. It's been too long.
It's been too long indeed. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear other like horror stories from people, I guess. Because, you know, we have an insight into what's happened in our lives and our experiences with people, but it's always interesting hearing about other people's experiences and especially those outside of our own awareness. So, you know, hearing stories of things that are just, you know, just seem unreal to us.
Yeah. And also too, to keep it in that, I suppose, positive frame as well, as like situations where you've been able to get to a better outcome.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, it may well be that you've left and you've stood up for yourself and you feel really proud of what you were able to achieve because that was a big hurdle for you to get over. You know, like those things or different ways that you found to affect change and have a change on that. Or even, you know, reflecting, like we've all had situations where we probably could be better as leaders and, oh shit, you know, I'm guilty of that at some point. And, you know, there's lots of different
so if you want to make any confessions, feel free to.
You got a confessional box?
Well, you can just go to the contact form on your website, or maybe email you personally with all your confessions.
You know, I don't think I don't hold any clout, mate. The Lord is on my side. I don't know. But no,
fun chat.
Yeah, it was, man. It's really cool. And you know, I know you've been flat out. You've been
like a lizard drinking, as they say.
So it's good to get a bit of your time again. And I know that you're pretty close to you know, some really cool news with what you've been doing with your studies in psychology, and you've got through your honors, and you know got some cool stuff coming up, which is awesome to hear, mate. That you've put in a lot of work and a lot of sacrifices to get that. So it's cool to see you starting to get some rewards.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Awesome, Scotty.
See ya, people.
Have you dealt with poor leadership before? Help us fight back by sharing this episode with someone, or even better, on social media. Who knows, maybe some bosses who need to hear this episode give it a listen. And if you're in need of some help right now dealing with a bad boss, check out our coaching services in the show notes. We really appreciate your support.